He sat on a public bench, sightless, powerful, and completely ignored, until a young black girl stepped forward where everyone else looked away. She was treated like she didn't belong, like her voice didn't matter, yet she said something that froze the air. "I can heal your eyes." People laughed. Authority dismissed her. And behind polite smiles, a woman with everything to gain tightened her grip on control. What no one realized was this. By silencing the girl, by underestimating her, the woman who thought she had everything under control had just made a mistake that would unravel everything she planned. Comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories reach. And subscribe for more powerful stories that demand to be heard. Albert Lewis had built his life on control of companies, negotiations, outcomes. Blindness didn't erase that discipline, but it changed how the world treated him. His days became predictable by necessity, not weakness. Same routes, same routines, same public spaces where people decided who he was before he spoke. To most, he was no longer a man who led industries. He was a liability being tolerated. At home, the balance had shifted quietly. Selena managed conversations, filtered information, and framed decisions as care. She spoke for Albert in rooms where he once commanded attention. When he pushed back, the response was calm, measured, and dismissive. "You don't need to carry this anymore," she told him once. Albert didn't argue. He noted it. The environment around him had changed too. Professionals spoke slower, simpler. Meetings shortened. Choices arrived, pre-made. What unsettled him wasn't the help. It was the assumption that he no longer had authority over his own life. Jethro noticed it before Albert admitted it to himself. His son didn't visit often, but when he did, he paid attention. He noticed how decisions were explained after they were made, how his father was guided instead of consulted, how Selena controlled the pace of every interaction. Jethro said little, but the tension sat between them, unspoken and heavy. He wasn't sure yet if what he sensed was neglect or something more deliberate. Outside the house, the world felt sharper. The park, once neutral ground, wasn't neutral anymore. Albert sensed it in the pauses, in the way security watched some people longer than others, in how space tightened when certain voices were heard. The rules weren't written, but they were enforced. A young black girl sitting alone drew suspicion. A well-dressed woman speaking confidently drew trust. The imbalance was constant, normalized, and rarely challenged. Emma lived inside that imbalance. Her presence alone made people uncomfortable. She didn't shout or demand attention. She existed, and that was enough to be questioned. Albert noticed how conversations stopped when she came near, how eyes followed her movements, how authority hovered, waiting for an excuse. Davis would later call it conditioning. Erica Moore would call it systemic. Albert felt it as pressure, quiet, deliberate, closing in. Nothing had exploded yet. No accusations, no confrontations, but every day added weight. Every silence made space smaller. Every decision taken out of Albert's hands hinted at an ending he hadn't agreed to. The conflict wasn't coming loudly. It was being prepared. And when it arrived, it wouldn't ask permission. The pressure stopped pretending to be subtle. At the park, Albert felt it first, not through sight, but through sound and timing. Footsteps slowed when he arrived. Conversations cut short. Security lingered close enough to listen. And when Emma sat beside him, the atmosphere shifted from uneasy to hostile. A guard approached, posture stiff, authority rehearsed. "You can't stay here long," he said. "We're just sitting," Emma replied, calm but firm. The guard's eyes never left her. That's not the issue. No one nearby asked what the issue was. They didn't need to. Silence filled the gap, heavy and deliberate. A woman nearby shook her head. A man adjusted his headphones and looked away. The message was clear. Emma was the problem, not the behavior aimed at her. Albert spoke evenly. "She's with me." The guard hesitated, then answered, "Sir, we're trying to keep things appropriate. Appropriate, not safe, not equal." The guard stepped back, but the damage was done. Emma had been marked, allowed only as long as she stayed invisible. At home, control tightened into routine. Selena no longer framed her decisions as suggestions. She informed, meetings were shortened, documents were summarized, not shared. When Albert questioned changes, her response stayed calm, almost soothing. "You're tired," she said. "Let me handle this." Jennifer's presence became constant. Pills appeared on schedule. Doses changed without explanation. When Albert refused one evening, Jennifer didn't argue. She noted it. "What are you writing?" Albert asked. "Observations," she replied. "It's required." Required by whom wasn't discussed. Every reaction was recorded. Every moment of frustration reframed as instability. Albert began to understand how easily resistance could be turned into evidence, not through force, but through documentation. Jethro noticed the shift during a visit that ended too quickly. He watched his father ask a question and receive an answer that closed the conversation instead of opening it. He noticed how Selena positioned herself between Albert and decisions that used to be his. Later, in private, Jethro said quietly, "Dad, this doesn't feel right." Albert didn't respond immediately. He didn't need to. The tension said enough. Jethro left uneasy, unsure whether he was witnessing concern or something calculated. Outside, Emma felt the escalation more sharply. Security questioned her more often. Park staff suggested she move along. Once, someone told her she made people uncomfortable. No one raised their voice. That was the cruelty of it. Polite exclusion, calm enforcement, racism without shouting. Bystanders watched. Some looked conflicted. None intervened. Davis confirmed what Albert feared. "They're building a narrative," he said. "Slow enough to look organic, clean enough to hold up." "How long?" Albert asked. "Until they remove you," Davis replied. Selena stopped hiding the endgame. She spoke openly about long-term care, about stepping back temporarily, about how stressful things had become for everyone. Each sentence assumed compliance. Each pause dared Albert to object. One afternoon, the mask cracked. Albert questioned a medication change. "You're not thinking clearly," Selena said, the softness gone. "I know what you're doing," he replied. Her smile vanished. "You think you do." At the park, the situation boiled over. Emma was stopped again, this time loudly. "You were warned," a guard said. "For what?" she asked. "For being here. Phones came out. People stopped walking." The words hung in the air. Unmistakable now. No euphemisms. No polite cover. Albert stood between them, cane steady. "She's done nothing wrong." A voice from the crowd spoke up. Then another. The silence fractured. Authority hesitated. For the first time, the control they relied on faltered under visibility. Selena arrived and diffused the scene, not by defending Emma, but by ending it. "This is unnecessary," she said sharply. "We're leaving." Later, without witnesses, she didn't bother hiding her anger. "You're attracting attention," she told Albert. "To the truth?" he asked. "To problems," she corrected. "And I won't let you destroy everything." That night, Albert understood the shape of the injustice fully. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was procedural, backed by systems that punished resistance and rewarded silence. Emma paid the price for being visible. Albert paid the price for refusing to disappear. Jethro felt the cost of realizing too late that something was being taken, quietly, legally, and on purpose. And those responsible still believed they were winning. They didn't see that every act of exclusion, every recorded reaction, every public humiliation was tightening the thread around their own deception. The pressure peaked. Something was about to break. The collapse didn't come with shouting or chaos. It came with certainty. Albert was summoned to a private meeting under the excuse of final clarification. The room was sterile, polished, and deliberately quiet. Selena sat across from him, composed, hands folded, confidence intact. Jennifer stood near the wall with her tablet, ready to record. Erica Moore had not been invited. Davis was absent. The exclusions were intentional. Selena spoke first, her voice controlled and clinical. "This is the last step," she said. "Once this is signed, things will finally stabilize." Paper slid across the table. Guardianship language, medical authority, permanent decisions disguised as temporary care. The tone assumed surrender. When Albert didn't respond, Selena leaned back, unbothered. "You don't need to understand every detail," she added. "That's why I'm here." Albert felt the weight of it, the months of preparation, the quiet pressure, the certainty that everyone in that room believed he was finished. This was the worst of it, not humiliation. Erasure. He placed a small recorder on the table. "Before anything else," he said evenly, "listen." Selena's eyes flickered. "This isn't necessary." Albert pressed play. Her voice filled the room, clear, unmistakable. Calm discussions about increasing sedation. Notes on documenting confusion. Conversations about timing and optics. Jennifer's voice followed, confirming dosage changes and compliance strategies. The careful lie unraveled in seconds. Jennifer froze. The tablet lowered slightly. Selena's posture stiffened. "That recording is manipulated," Selena snapped. "It's complete," Albert replied. The door opened. Erica Moore entered, followed by Davis, both carrying folders thick with evidence, financial transfers, communication logs, medical inconsistencies. Authority shifted in real time. Selena stood abruptly. "You can't do this," she said, the control finally cracking. "I already did," Albert answered. Across town, the truth reached its breaking point. At the park, Emma was confronted again, this time openly, loudly. A guard raised his voice. "You were warned." "For existing?" Emma asked, steady but unflinching. People stopped. Phones came out. The words were no longer hidden behind politeness. The crowd heard it. The silence that had protected the abuse broke apart. Albert arrived moments later, guided by sound and instinct. He stepped between Emma and the guard. "She has done nothing wrong." For the first time, bystanders spoke. One voice, then another. Authority hesitated, exposed under visibility. The control they relied on evaporated. Selena saw the footage as it spread. Messages flooding her phone, board members demanding explanations, legal counsel calling back to back. The narrative she built collapsed faster than she could contain it. Fear finally showed. Back in the meeting room, Selena's voice shook. "You think this ends me?" Albert didn't respond. Jethro arrived late, breath tight, eyes sharp. He looked at the papers, the recorder, the faces. The truth landed fully. "You did this to him," he said to Selena. "Not a question, a statement. She didn't deny it." That was the moment the balance of power snapped for good. The board intervened immediately. Selena's authority was suspended on the spot. Jennifer was dismissed pending investigation. Erica Moore took control of the process, methodical and unforgiving. Davis ensured nothing disappeared. Albert stood steady. Not rescued, restored. Emma stood beside him, no longer isolated, no longer invisible. What had been dismissed as inconvenience was now undeniable truth. The system that tried to silence her had no place to hide. Selena backed away, breathing shallow, the confidence that once protected her gone. "This isn't over," she said. Albert finally spoke. "It is." The room fell silent. The truth was out, witnessed, recorded, public. And the people who believed they controlled everything realized too late that the power they abused had permanently changed hands. The consequences arrived quickly, and they did not soften with time. Selena's authority was stripped in formal terms, not whispered rumors. The board moved decisively once the evidence was on record. Her access was revoked, accounts were frozen, legal filings followed, precise and unavoidable. There was no apology tour, no chance to rewrite the story. The system she had weaponized against Albert now documented her actions with the same cold efficiency. Jennifer was removed immediately. Her notes, dosages, and observations were audited line by line. What had been presented as care was reclassified as coercion. Her role did not fade into ambiguity. It ended under investigation. Erica Moore ensured the process did not stall. Every finding was filed, every violation preserved. Davis made sure nothing disappeared. This wasn't a scandal to be survived. It was a record that would stand. Albert did not ask for sympathy. He stood before decision-makers and reclaimed his authority on the merits of truth. His blindness was no longer framed as decline, but as proof of how easily power tries to erase those it underestimates. He was validated, not restored out of kindness, but recognized because the facts demanded it. Jethro stood beside his father during the final proceedings, not as a shield, not as a consolation, but as a witness. He had seen the quiet theft of agency up close, and he refused to let it be minimized. The damage was named. The responsibility was assigned. Silence was no longer an option. Emma's impact could not be undone. Her testimony was clear, calm, and devastating in its simplicity. The same presence once labeled uncomfortable was now undeniable. The bystanders who had looked away were forced to confront their complicity. The authority that questioned her right to exist in public had no defense left. This wasn't justice wrapped in comfort. It was accountability delivered without negotiation. The story did not end with forgiveness. It ended with truth made public and power corrected in full view. It exposed how racism often operates, quietly, procedurally, behind polite language and official forms. It showed how systems rely on silence and how visibility breaks that control. Albert moved forward with dignity intact. Emma moved forward knowing her voice mattered. And those who believed they could manage outcomes learned a hard lesson. When truth is witnessed, it cannot be managed. The question isn't whether this can happen again, it's how often it already has, and who we choose to believe when it does. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful stories about justice, truth, and the fight to be seen. Don't forget to hit the like button. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.